and welcome to the Africa Weekly Talk. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Today we're going to be talking about the economic situation around the world. And I beg to ask this question. Are we going back to the lost decade of the 80s? This lost decade of Latin American countries in the 80s was centered around the oil shock that happened because of the Israeli and Arab conflict. And this oil shock pretty much affected every economy in the world around that time. Even in America, people had to queue for gasoline at that time. Now, the reason why I'm asking that is because we have the Ukraine-Russia conflict right now going on. And basically, it also created this oil shock. Now, you also have a situation that are very similar. The Latin American countries at the time had very high debt. So basically what happened was that due to the oil shock, the economies couldn't grow. So most of these countries couldn't service their debt and ended up defaulting. Mexico was the first one to go, followed by Peru, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, and so on and so on. It took these countries over 10 years, more than a decade before they started getting back economically. Now, Argentina still hasn't really gotten back pretty much. I mean, it's like a seesaw with Argentina right now. Now, transfer that to what is going on around the world today. Today, I'm not going to refer to the Latin America, the lost decade. But look at what is happening in Sri Lanka. That country is almost dead, pretty much. The economy is pretty collapsed. There's nothing going on in that country. And if you look at Sri Lanka, it has the same roots of the lost decade of the 80s in Latin America. What is that? Higher debts. And now they cannot service their debts. And that is what is happening in Sri Lanka. Outside of the higher debts, they also have a very corrupt system down there. You have a country that is run like a family business. You have the president of the country, who is the brother of the prime minister. The transport minister is the brother. The economic minister is the brother. I mean, pretty much the country is run like a family business. And they have taken all these loans throughout the early 2000s and challenged them through their crony businesses. So that country is a crony capitalist system. That's what they do down there. About 60 to 75% of the economy of that country runs through their cronies and their family businesses. So that is one factor, because the level of corruption there has created this problem, huge problem for Sri Lanka. Now, I was reading The Economist a couple of days ago, and the World Bank has come out with a report. In that report, the World Bank names about 70 countries. As a matter of fact, it breaks down 70 countries, and then in that 70 countries, it has about 25 countries from Africa. Say sub-Saharan Africa. I don't like to use the word sub-Saharan because Africa is Africa. So I'd rather go with Africa, period. So with these 25 countries, you have Ghana and South Africa, Kenya, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Zimbabwe. I mean, on and on and on. Now, and when you look at these countries, the similarities with the lost decade of the 80s in Latin America is glaringly there. It's glaringly there. You can see it. What is it? Higher debts, tumbling of the economies, and inability to service their debts. And that is what is happening right now. That is what is happening right now. So basically, most of these countries, what they are doing right now is building their economies to service their debts. That's what they are doing. So they don't have any excess revenue to generate economic output inside the economies. They are not getting any excess revenue to pump capital back into their economies to generate economic output, to bring more revenue to the government. Because what they are doing right now is basically all the economic activities going on, the revenues that come about is used to service their debts. Now, take a country like Egypt. Egypt's debt ratio to its economy, to its GDP, is pretty much what? About 75 to 80%. Same with Kenya. South Africa is about 75 to 80% as well. I mean, even with a country like Ghana, you're talking about what, 90 to 95% to its GDP. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. So basically, you don't have any excess revenue to be able to push through the economic system of your countries to generate any revenue to build the economies. So all you are doing is building the economy right now to service debts. And even servicing the debts, they are defaulting. Okay? They are defaulting. But the sad thing about this is that this is not about just taking loans. This is about corruption. That's what this is about. If you look down all these countries, there's also one thing in common. These countries have one of the highest crony capitalist system in the world. And what is crony capitalism? Crony capitalism is basically whereby these governments, political leaders of these countries, run government money through their cronies, their friends and family businesses. So they take these big loans, and these big loans come into their economic system, but they don't put this money into the general economic system of their countries. Because they are corrupt, what they will do is first, when they take these loans, they will siphon part of the loan, okay, which goes to their corrupt politicians. And then the rest of the money that goes into the system is funneled through their cronies' businesses. That is what happens. So basically, now what they are doing is that instead of, when you take a loan, that loan is supposed to go into the economic activities of your country. You create infrastructure. You create an economic system where that loan is going to create economic growth. When it creates that growth, what it does is that it gives that country enough money to pay the debts that they have to pay on that loan. So if you take loans and you are not able to put that loan into the general economic areas where it will create growth to bring in enough revenue so that you can be able to service the debts due to the loans you have taken, then basically everything you are doing is that you are going to have to siphon money from other sectors of the economy to cover that losses. And that is what most of these countries are doing. So they have taken these huge loans going back some as far as 15, 20 years. And all they are doing now is trying to siphon money, revenue from other sectors of the economy to service these debts. Now, you take a country like Egypt. Egypt's economy is run through the military. I mean, if you ever heard of military-industrial complex, there's no country in this world that has the military-industrial complex that more than Egypt. Egypt's economy is not a big economy, okay? But if we talk about military-industrial complex, and this is something that Dwight D. Eisenhower, former American president, even warned the United States of America on. He warned the United States of America on this industrial military complex. Industrial military complex basically is that where the government funnels money through, pumps money through the military industries in the country, and by building, using the military to create jobs and to create economic activities. And Egypt in particular, if you want to do business in Egypt, everything that goes through economically in Egypt is run through the military industrial complex. That is the Egypt military. That is what it is. Egypt military is involved with agriculture, industries, cotton, farming, I mean, everything you can think of. So most businesses, even investments that are coming from outside into Egypt, you have to go through this military industrial complex of Egypt. And when you create a big government, because remember, the military is part of the government. So this is a big government creation. And when you do that, this can never build any economy in a real capitalist society. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't. And then you take out, even when you take that out, now you have to also look at the crony capitalist system that exists within this military industrial complex of Egypt. So now you have these generals who are aligned with the president, who is also a military person, okay? And now they have to make sure that some of these contracts that the military is dealing with have to go through these cronies of these presidents and their ministers and their politicians for them to get their kickbacks. So basically, I mean, countries like that, there's no way you can grow to become a decent economic power in any way. It's not going to happen. And that is what is happening. And that is one thing in common with most of these countries around the world going through these problems. Now, I'm going to talk about Ghana. I'm going to talk about Ghana because the funny thing about Ghana is, I remember in 2018, the Ghanaian government had set up this Euro bond in I think in England, where they sold this Euro bond for about $2 billion at about 7.something% interest for 10 to 30 years maturity dates. Now, 2018, they did that. They hailed that as an historic, because the first sub-Saharan African country or African country to raise that much money. Well, good. That money wasn't enough for them. 2021, fast forward 2021, what did they go? They went back, raised another $3 billion at about 8% interest, also for 10 to 30 years maturity dates. And then you ask this question: what is going on in these countries, in this country in particular? So far, within the last 3 or 4 years, you've raised about $5 billion of bonds. That wasn't still enough for this country. Just this past couple of months, the government also imposed what they call E-Levy Tax on its citizens. The E-Levy Tax was imposed and was passed by the parliament about 2-3 months ago. And the argument they made was they were going to generate more revenue to help them to service their debts. Remember, this is about servicing debt, because the country, I mean, this is a country which has a debt to GDP ratio of about 85 to 90%. I mean, this is very conservative figures I'm calling right now. 85 to 90%. That's pretty much conservative to me based on what is going on down there. Now, that is still not enough. Now, this same country, from what I heard recently, a news bulletin that came out, is ready to go to the IMF for loans. I mean, give me a break. Give me a break. Now they are going to the IMF for loan. So within the past 3-4 years, raised about $5 billion through the bonds that they sold. That wasn't enough. They instituted what they called COVID taxes on the people of Ghana. So basically, if you go to Ghana and you look at your receipts, I mean, you have to look at your own receipts when you go to a restaurant or a hotel or whatever. Whenever you are in Ghana, check all these receipts and you see the taxes that are on these receipts. You have a COVID tax in Ghana. Okay, the first time I saw that, I couldn't believe it. But that is what has been going on. So you had COVID tax. You have a country raising about $5 billion through their bonds. And then, outside of that, they have all these taxes that have been dumped on the people. And then you have the VAT. I mean, come on. And now with all of that, still they're having problems servicing their debts. They're having problems servicing their debt because the economy of that country is really, really in a shithole. That's what it is. Excuse my language, just like Donald Trump said. That is where they are. Because this country will never have to go to the IMF if the economic standing was in a decent situation. It is not. Because the IMF right now, because I remember a couple of months ago when they were making the argument about their E-Levy. I mean, what is E-Levy? E-Levy is pretty much what I call pickpocketing. Okay? This is basically money that people who have saved money and have their mobile money with their this mobile networks, and when they transfer this money either to make payments, or maybe some of them will send this money to their children in schools, transfer money to their children, to help them with their school fees, or to send it to their grandparents or their grandchildren, whichever case. When you do that transaction through the mobile money system, the government taxes you. So basically, it's a legal form of pickpocketing. I mean, this is money that you already gained that has already been taxed. Okay? And now that money that is in your pocket that you are going to use to send few cities or whatever to a relative or to a son or a child or to a grandmother or whatever, now also is being taxed. Because remember, if you take your own money out of your pocket and you give it to a friend, it's the same money. But when you send it through the mobile money network, then it's taxable. Okay? So now you have all these burdens, higher tax burdens that have been imposed on the citizens of this country. And now, finally, they have decided all this is not enough. Because the underlying problem with this economy of that country is so shitty, to the point that they are not even being upfront with the citizens of their country. Okay? Because look at it from 2018 when they went for the Eurobonds all the way to now. So it keeps pounding and pounding and pounding on. That's what is happening in that country right now. Now the IMF, if you know what the IMF functions is basically simple. It's to exchange stability. That's what it does. Credit facility. It facilitates credits, determine per value of member countries, elimination of BOP, disequilibrium, stabilizing economies, and maintaining balance of balance of demand and supply within the member countries. And also, it's supposed to reduce tariffs, deal with tariffs and all that stuff. But the most important thing, it has to keep a general watch on your economy. So basically, it controls what you can do and what you cannot do when they give you these loans. I mean, that is how the IMF works. But for a country like Ghana to go to the IMF at this juncture, that should tell you something. Because I don't think these people would have gone to the IMF if they could have gotten loans from private investors or gone back to Europe bonds and sell some more bonds, or get some more loans from China or other countries. I mean, the country's ratings is been downgraded to shitty level. So basically, they cannot get any country or any investment companies around the world to even buy their bonds anymore. That's how bad the system is. If you people don't know, that is how bad it is. Because if you cannot even get countries and investors to buy your bonds anymore, and your last resort is to go to the IMF, then that should tell you your country is in really, really shitty hole. That's what it is. And at the end of the day, who are the ones who are going to bear the brunt of this economic situation in that country right now? It's the citizens. These citizens are overtaxed. They are already overtaxed. That country. I mean, look. One American senator put it the right way. He said, African countries have some of the highest tax rates in the world. It has some of the highest tax rates in the world. And because of that, it has stiffened the economic system, killed any possibility of economic development in most African countries. Okay? A country like Tanzania. If you make over $475 or so, below $500, anything above $475, you tax over 30%. plus the VAT that you have to pay, plus the other taxes that are imposed on these citizens. They always make the argument that because they have poor structures in collecting taxes from the citizens, the only avenue for them to use is through these avenues. In actual sense, you can say yes, it makes sense when they say something like that. But the bottom line is that the problem is that most of these countries' problem is not because they have poor tax structures or bad tax structures. It's because of corruption. That is the only problem. The problem is corruption. I mean, Africans are the only countries on earth and some other third world countries that I can pinpoint that they spend so much money by paying taxes to their government and get little return. Little return. Because if you look at most African countries in terms of infrastructure development, outside of big infrastructure developments like major thoroughfares or major airports and ports, a lot of some of their developments are grants by European countries and Asian countries like Japan, USA, and the and the Eurozone. I mean, go to Ghana and look at the N1. Okay, that N1 was 100% paid by American taxpayers. It was 100% funded by the American taxpayers. The Ghana government had no dollar, a dime in that road construction. Same with the one that links the N1 to Pokwase through Ablekuma. That one was also funded by the European Union, 100% by the European Union. And then you have the Japanese government also funding other major projects in that country. So basically, if you look at infrastructure-wise of most of these African countries, some of these main infrastructures are being funded by grants from European and American and Asian countries. So basically, all the country have to do is to fund the little ones within their system that they can be able to fund. Now you go and listen to their budgets. When they read their budgets, because they know that. So even within their own budget, they don't even have big projects in their budget outside of very key projects that they have, like maybe airports and ports and other major stuff. There's very few of them. But most of other stuff, grid, pipe-borne water projects in the villages, rural areas, all these are funded by European countries and American government. Okay? So basically, what these countries' governments need to do is to have enough revenue to take care of their own fellow citizens. But they've taken all these big loans. Some of these big loans, they take them and have no bid contracts on them. And they have, I mean, it doesn't even make sense. You see some of contracts, that amount of money that these African countries spend on road construction and some of the airport construction, port construction, that is way sometimes 2 times or 3 times more than the same project size even in Europe or in Asia, China or somewhere else. Are you kidding me? I mean, you talk about Africa, you talk about very low, cheap labor cost. But meanwhile, you go and look at their data of the cost of some of these infrastructure projects. Okay? And you look at it and you ask yourself this question: how in the world are you spending so much money on these infrastructure projects when most of these projects even wouldn't cost half even in the developed country like America or Europe or Asia or China? But you know what it is? It's the kickbacks. The kickbacks and the corrupt system that exists within these governments in these countries. And that is where the problem is. So you have all these big loans that these countries have taken, and now they are not able to service these loans, and now some of them are going to end up defaulting on these loans. It's not because if they had put these loans in the right places within their economies, that could have generated revenue, generated economic growth, so that it will benefit the economy in general and benefit the citizens of these countries. But because of this corrupt system, it has been hampering growth ever since most African countries moved from dictatorship to electoral democracies. That is what has been going on. Okay, and now the World Bank is saying 25 countries in sub-Saharan Africa are in very serious crisis. Okay, I just talked about Ghana. Ghana's situation hasn't changed. It's not going to go nowhere. Okay, the IMF, I already stated what the IMF does, the functions of the IMF. The IMF basically is going to give you some loan, but they're going to have strings attached to them. What you can do and what you cannot do. Even among some American economists, they call the IMF the Economic Hitman. Okay, they call them the Economic Hitman because the IMF and the World Bank loans, they are there to make sure you do things that benefit their big dogs, which happens to the US and the European countries. Who appoint IMF directors? Who appoint World Bank directors? Where is their main offices, headquarters? They are all where? In Europe, headquarters in America, and they have some sub offices in Europe. Okay, and who do you think they report to? The US Treasury. If you don't know, all the IMF, World Bank functions that you know goes on, they always deal with the US Treasury because America is the one that pretty much funds these organizations. So America is the one that will tell you who is going to be the head of the IMF or who is going to be the head of the World Bank, period. No ifs and buts about it. So don't fool yourselves. They are there to service the interest of America and its European allies. That's the bottom line. That's why most countries avoid the IMF. Okay? Most countries avoid the IMF for that particular reason. Because they are not there for your interest. Okay? They're going to give you the economic outlines. They'll tell you what you have to do. By the end of the day, that loan is also coming with strings attached to it and has to be paid. Okay? Even though they will structure it in a way to be a little bit favorable for you, but in the long term, okay, it becomes worse than even getting a loan from China or by selling bonds. Okay, and so the people of Ghana, you have to know that this situation is not going anywhere. It's unfortunate, but this is how your situation is right now, and this is where it's heading. It's going to be very, very painful, but you are not being told the truth. That's the whole thing. Because if you look at it, just go back what you have been told for the past 6 months. Okay? Because from what I heard, they were saying that they weren't going to go to IMF because they were trying to avoid going to IMF. I heard some clips. Some people sent me some clips some months back. And because of that, they have to get an E-Levy through. They got it. And now they are still going to IMF. So that means they were lying to you people. Okay? But the bottom line, like I said, is that it's not just about the lies. These people are corrupt. Now look at it this way. What percentage did the facilitators of the Euro bond transaction in Europe make from the Ghana government? Has anybody asked that question? Has anybody in Ghana asked that question? What was the percentage, the rate that was paid to the facilitators of that Euro bond transaction in Europe? I don't think people are being told the truth. They are not telling you. And which companies did that facilitation, that transactions on behalf of the government of Ghana? These are questions you have to ask your government. Because you need to make them aware for them to be accountable for how much the people of Ghana paid. Okay? Paid to the private company the transactions in that Euro bond sales in Europe, in England. You have to ask these questions. You look at this and then you ask yourself, were there some crony capitalist systems going on around that time? They did. Because at the end of the day, they do create these transactions and it goes to their cronies. And so the people, the citizens of Ghana, sometimes are being charged at a very higher rate than the going rate that maybe a company in America, a company in England, or a company in somewhere in Africa can do for the same services, even better services, will charge the government of Ghana. But because these people are corrupt, they use their friends and their families to do these transactions on behalf of the government of Ghana and charge the government of Ghana these huge percentages, which could have gone to help the government of Ghana in these transactions. And then they do what? Then they pocket this money. So the problem is not just what is happening. The underlying factor to most of this problem that is going on is the level of corruption in most of these countries. That is what it is. You call a spade a spade. You people are being bamboozled. Okay, wake up. You are being bamboozled by your government. That is what is happening. These people that are using your money, your country's assets, your country's wealth. Okay, they are taking advantage at your expense, the citizens of Ghana. That is what these governments are doing. Okay, not just in Ghana, all across in Africa. That is what they are doing. Okay, so most of these politicians are enriching themselves at the expense of your countries. And this is what is happening in most of African countries. So you people have to stand up. You people have to stand up and challenge. Because at the end of the day, look at it this way. What is happening today? You think it's happening today. What about your children, your grandchildren who are coming up? They are the ones who are going to bear the brunt of these economic woes that you are going through. You are bearing some. But just imagine where they are going to be in about 10, 15, 20 years when the maturity date of these bonds come. Okay? Have you people thought about that? Okay, you just got the money. But when these bonds start maturing, when you have to start paying on this higher interest of 7.5% and 8%, that is when you see the economic brunt that you people are going to go through. Right now, it's just the beginning. Okay, it's just the beginning. You have some of these economists, so-called economists in your countries who will come and sit down there and run their big mouth and talk big. Talk economic statistics. Deal with economic reality. Okay, economics is not that complicated like Americans do. In America, economics is based on the main street. What you see on the street, what you see in the markets, what you see in the system, how people feel. That is what you people have to consider yourselves and into when you're dealing with your economic situations. Your situations that you are bearing every day. Okay, don't be listening to this World Bank analyst and IMF analyst talk about growth, 5% growth. That's pure statistical economics. Okay, that is statistical economics. You come and tell somebody that your economy grew at 5%. Meanwhile, you have people living day by day and can't afford ordinary basic amenities. And then you're telling them on paper your economy grew 5, 6, 7%, and you think you are doing well when you have about 70% unemployment rate among your youths. Okay, so don't look at that paper statistics. Okay, paper statistics, and it doesn't mean a damn thing. The most important thing is look at what you are going through on the ground. If you want to test your economic abilities, even in a very developed system like the United States of America, we have what we call the Main Street economic system in America. That means what people are going through day to day is what pretty much is a factor to judge how the economic situation of the country is. That's what they call the Main Street economics. It is not what the statisticians will bring the data that they will come up with. Okay, that is good for statistical purposes. But when it comes to the real deal, that is what people are feeling, whether people are able to afford to buy bread, whether people are able to afford to buy breakfast, lunch, dinner, pay their bills, that is what is the real economic situation your countries are going through. And that is where you have to hold your your government accountable. So let me re-emphasize on this thing again. So Ghana goes to IMF. Now the IMF, if they are going to give Ghana loans, are going to come with very stringent rules, big time strings attached to these loans. Okay, and when IMF gives you a loan, a lot of the times what they come up with, it's like what they call austerity measures. That's what they're going to do. So now they're going to ask you, your countries, to find ways to increase revenue. That is number one. Okay, and that's how it works. Okay, they're going to ask your countries, your government, how they're going to be able to generate revenue. And the first thing most of the time they go for is taxes. They're going to say, okay, you know what? You have to increase taxes to generate more revenue. And what does increment of taxes do to economies? It kills economies. It's that simple. There's no two ways about it. Taxes in every economic system kills economies. Okay? Americans fought their revolution against England if it wasn't for tea tax. All right? If it wasn't for tea tax that the English had imposed on Americans. All right? If it wasn't for that tea tax, America would never have gone to a revolutionary war with the English. But at that time, the taxes have been compounding and compounding and compounding. So when the English finally came up with that tea tax, what did they do in Boston? They took all the English teas and dumped them in the Boston Harbor. And that was the beginning of the American Revolution against England for their independence. So no country on earth, no citizens on earth like taxes. No citizens on earth like taxes. I'm not saying taxes are bad. No. There's nothing wrong to tax your citizens. Because you have to tax your citizens to generate revenue to build infrastructures. Okay? That is what government does. But the problem with your situation is that your countries are overtaxed to the extent that because of the corrupt system. So even the taxes that are taken from you people does not go to benefit your the citizens of your countries. That is the problem. Because the system is so corrupt. Okay? Because the system is so corrupt that the taxes that are taken from the citizens doesn't go to benefit the citizens of the country. Right? Somebody pockets about a quarter of the taxes. It goes to build some bourgeoisie or some big man or somewhere in some department, buys big cars, ride around in big SUVs at the expense of the citizens. So the question is, if they ask the government to generate more revenue, the first thing the government has to do is, what can the government do to cut down their spending? That is where they have to go first. Instead of imposing higher taxes on you citizens, they have to go down the line of creating austerity within the government, number one. That is the first thing they have to do. Cut down of importation of foreign cars. Cut down of per diem, travels, and all that nonsense. That is number two. And three, cut down government employees in these government agencies. I mean, these people come to office and the first thing they do is to create these massive government agencies so that they have to satisfy their cronies, their friends and their families who helped them before they got to the position they are in, by either through become members of parliament or government or officials. So they create these massive, huge bureaucracies. Huge bureaucracies. I mean, this is a small country of what? Less than 30 million people. Are you kidding me? The size of Lagos, Nigeria. Give me a break. Size of Lagos, Nigeria. 30 million people. Somehow, this same little country will have about, how many ministers do they have? How many deputy ministers do they have? How many, executives do they have? All these people are on the government payroll. Okay? So at the end of the day, Why don't you people demand to know what is the government expenditure on wages and salaries to all these government officials? You have to know this, because if the government is going to demand you guys to pay more taxes and higher taxes, then you people have the right, because you are the ones who put these people in office. You are the ones who voted for these people to office. You are the ones who elected them to office. So it is about time you people hold these people accountable, instead of you people sitting down there and being timid and not going at these government officials and demanding accountability. That is your problem right there, because you are not demanding accountability. So these officials have been taking you people for granted all these years. And every time you hear them say, like they always say in Ghana, oh, it's going to be all right. Meanwhile, you've never been all right since independence. You are still in the same boat since independence. As a matter of fact, even around that time, you were even better. It's getting even worse and worse and worse now. So you have to demand accountability. Okay? You have to demand accountability. I mean, you people have made yourself into tribal, party politics, where you vote for people just because they are in your tribe, but you don't vote for them just because of ideas. You don't vote for them because of what they are offering to do to benefit you and your children and your grandchildren. But rather because, oh, he's from this tribe, I'm from this tribe. And you know what? And the politicians in your countries know better. They know that, you know what? If we tell them I'm from this tribe, oh, he said he's part of my tribe. He's the Akan. He's a fancy. I'll vote for him. I mean, come on, give me a break. Oh, he's a Christian. Oh, he goes to church. Are you kidding me? And that's what people have been doing for all these years. And you have to ask yourselves this question. You're always complaining. Oh, things are bad. Things are bad. You choose your leaders. Okay? You choose your leaders. That is what democracy is all about. In a democratic society, you choose your leaders. And when your leaders don't live to the expectations that you expect from them, you kick them out. But unfortunately, both political systems and parties in your country, they are all corrupt. It says that one is more corrupt than the other. that is the only thing I can say. They are all corrupt. They are not good. Okay? They are all not good. And they have never been good ever since you transitioned from dictatorial government to electoral democracies. They are all corrupt. And the saddest of it all is that even when you people were transitioning, instead of putting in place term limits, so that these politicians who come to parliament will either have to serve 2 terms and then go and retire and somebody else come, you people decided to give them open terms. So somehow somebody has been sitting in parliament for almost 20-something years. Some of them have even been in parliament, I think, since the very inception of your current democratic system, which is like 1992 or 93 or 94. And some of these people have been in parliament, and for some whatever reason, they are still there. Okay? I mean, it is your choice. So anyway, I mean, the people of Ghana, you guys have to wake up. Okay? Your situation right now is getting closer to Sri Lanka. Right now, Sri Lanka has the worst economic situation right now. I'm going to look at that country. It's a mess. It all started with the Rajapaksa family, which has been running that country like a family business. They are also very corrupt. They took up all these loans from China and from other countries. I mean, as a matter of fact, about 2 months ago, the country even didn't have money to import petroleum goods for their own economy. They couldn't even import petroleum goods. India had to give them $1 billion. And that $1 billion by now it's even gone. Okay? Is that the situation you guys want to be in? It's getting closer. And you don't have anybody to blame. Because at the end of the day, you have to ask your leaders, where is all this money? The bonds that have been sold. Because remember, these bonds are sold on your backs. Okay, don't fool yourselves to think that somehow if your government goes to sell bonds, that bonds is sold by them. It is them. No, it is sold on your backs. That is what you people have to understand. These bonds are sold on your toil. That is what they are selling these bonds on. And therefore, you people have the right to demand, what did these bonds, so far $5 billion bond, what did that bond do to the economy of Ghana? Where is that money? You people have to ask these questions because it is your money. It is not the current president or the members of parliament or the government in power today's money. It is you people, your money. And you have every right to demand accountability on that money. And that is what you people have to do. But like I said also, at the end of the day, you elected these people. Okay? That is what democracies do. And it is up to you to demand accountability. Where I live in the United States, a congressman comes to you to ask you how you see the economic system going on, your community, what is happening, just to get a feedback. Because he knows that if things are not going well in your communities, in the next 2 years elections, he'll be out of office. He understands that. So they know that their job is to serve the people, not the other way around. In America, the politician understands that his job is to serve his or her constituents, but not the other way around. Unfortunately, I don't know how you people have been educated in terms of democracy. Somehow you people sit down in your homes and your communities, and somehow you think that the person that you have elected to represent you, rather, you are supposed to be serving him by calling him honorable, when these are the same people who are robbing you in broad daylight. These same people robbing you, robbing your resources, robbing your hard work taxes that you have given to the government through their cronies and their corruption. You calling them honorable, and then you come home and you cry about how bad things are. I mean, then you must be a fool. Okay, you must be a damn fool. Because if you're going to call a person who is robbing you a honorable, what is he honorable of doing? Is he honorable of providing you jobs? Has he been honorable by keeping his word? And you have these titles, honorable nonsense, when you are suffering. And then you keep putting these people back in office, time after time. When are you people going to wake up? When are you going to wake up? I mean, come on. Come on. We live in a modern world. Okay, you are in a democratic society. Democracy doesn't mean that when you go and vote, then that is it. Democracy is supposed to bleed through the system of your countries. It has to bleed all the way through every aspect of your countries, economic, political system, as well as economics. Okay, but unfortunately, your democracies are pretty much what I call electoral democracies. You just go and elect people. But in terms of rule of law, it doesn't work. Because if the rule of law works, you would have had some changes by now in your countries. But the rule of law doesn't work because you have a corrupt system being taken over by another bigger corrupt system. So the ones who were there before are just as corrupt as the ones there now. So basically, either way, you don't even have a better option. All your options are messed up. that is what it is. You don't even have any option because you have the corrupt government now. Prior to this government, the other government was also corrupt. The difference is that maybe this one is more corrupt than the other one. And then you're going to elect the next one, and that one is going to be also what? Corrupt. Because your legal system, it doesn't have rule of law. The rule of law doesn't exist in your democracy. That is your problem. So basically, this is the beginning. Okay, I'm sorry to say this. I mean, this is my assessment. Okay, this is my assessment that I'm presenting. You can take it or you can leave it. I'm not forcing this view on anybody. But this is what is happening, and this is how it's going to be. So brace yourselves. It's going to get worse. Okay, because IMF, whatever money IMF is going to give the government of Ghana, is not going to solve the underlying factors of the problems that exist in that country. See, that is what you have to understand. The problem that that country is going through right now, the underlying factors are bigger than what you people think. It's not just about getting loans. Okay? It's not just about getting loans. The country is in a very bad economic shape. And because of corruption, that is the key. The key factor to your problems is corruption. And that is what it is. Because the loans have been taken before. The money have been invested in part of the economies, but it goes into the wrong side of the economy. Because they have to give the money, put the money in their cronies, in their families, businesses, create new opportunities for their cronies and their families. So even when the money is not needed in this particular sector, they have to put their money there. Okay, so that they have to get their kickback. So at the end of the day, where that money is supposed to go to create enough revenue to service that debt of the loan that you have gone to collect, that money is not going into the general economic system to do that. And by the time he even gets there, a certain percentage has already been siphoned off anyway by their cronies, by the crooks there. So basically, most of the time, the problem most of you African countries is that these loans have been taken. But to service these loans, the loans that were taken, the saddest part of it all is that some of them even will take, when they siphon some of this money, they bring this money to Europe or to America to put in American banks or European banks or Asia banks. Now they go to what? Dubai. That's the capital of what do you call it? What do you call that? Money laundering. America have already told them. They are watching them. Dubai. Because that is the so far, that's the capital of money laundering right now. So that is where they send their money now. Okay? And so basically what is happening is that you take the loans, and some of them even don't keep some of the money in their own country to help develop their country. And you know, a country does not develop without capital. That is what great economic systems are. Every economic system that is developed, the underlying factor of their development is capital. If you don't have capital, you can have all kind of education, you can have all kind of institutions, you can have anything you want, but if you don't have capital to harness those institutions and the education of your citizenry, you ain't going nowhere. You ain't going nowhere. And that is what capital does. Capital seeps through the economic system, and that is what it creates jobs. That is what creates good working environment for the citizens. But you also have to have good infrastructures. Okay? You have to have good infrastructures. And all these things are very good things to have. But at the end of the day, if you don't have leaders, you don't have visionary leaders who have these countries at heart. That is the key. You have to have leaders who have your countries at heart. But unfortunately, there's only one leader in Africa that I can say. And unfortunately, that leader died. The leader of Tanzania. The former Tanzania president. In this modern day Africa, he's the only leader that I can say generally had a good heart for his country. And then second, I might go with Kigali of Rwanda. Or I think, is it Kagame or Kigali of Rwanda? But outside of these two people, I don't know any leader in Africa that I can say wholeheartedly that they have a good heart or they love their countries. They don't love their countries. They are there to take advantage of the people of their countries to enrich themselves and their cronies and their families. That is the bottom line. That is why these people are there in office. They are not there because they want to build something for the future generation of your country, of their countries. That's not why they are there. They are there to enrich themselves and help enrich their cronies and their families. That is the saddest of it all. Because if you really believe in your country and you love your country and you want to help develop your country to become a better country, to be a country where the future generation, grandchildren today, children today will also happen to live in a society where they can also become better citizens of that country, then you always have to think of these little children so that you can set in place infrastructures, systems that will end up benefiting these children, who will take it over and help build these countries to become a better country. But most of these leaders you have today, I'm sorry, they don't have your countries at heart. It's all about themselves, their cronies, and their fraudulent families and friends. That's all it is. Okay? So you have these oligarchs, okay? Oligarchies that they have created in your countries. And the saddest of it all is that even if you are going to be corrupt, don't be corrupt on the very citizens, the people's money. But where else are they going to get their money? So they use the citizens' money. Okay? They steal your own money. I mean, a couple of months ago, a friend of mine sent me a video on WhatsApp. I think most of you guys might have seen it. A politician in Ghana sitting on TV talking about all politicians he knows in that country. All the politicians are thieves. And the lady interviewing him asked him, so are you also a thief? And he said, yes. I'm also a thief because I'm also a politician. Are you kidding me? You have a politician in your country sitting on TV telling you that they are all thieves stealing from you. Oh my goodness. Oh man. I played this to a friend of mine, a white American friend of mine. He's a political guy here. I played this video to him and he shook his head. He said, oh my goodness. You have a politician sitting on TV telling the whole wide world that all the politicians in his country are thieves. And he was asked, are you also a thief? And he said, yes, I'm also a thief. And he said, if you want to know, just look before they become, they become members of parliament, or before they get into politics or whatever. Just look at the way they dress, look at their shoes, look at their clothes. And then when they become members of parliament, when they get that position, then also compare how they dressed before, how they were dressed before, and how they dress now. That tells you exactly. Oh man. Oh my goodness. And that's the fact. At least he was honest. He wasn't lying. Because he was telling the truth. Okay? So anyway, you guys have to wake up. Alright? It's not going to get better anytime soon. By the end of the day, it starts from leadership. And you people have to start holding your leaders accountable. That's what it has to be. If you have to protest. That is what you have to do. You know? But, so it's been a nice week. And I have to cut this video short. I mean, I would have loved to talk. But unfortunately, I have to cut it short. So like I said, if it's Sunday, is the Africa Weekly Talk. Tune in, because there's always beautiful stuff to talk about. We'll always be talking.